It is 8:30 according to the clock on the wall, so I'll call the meeting to order. Certification of open meeting laws requirement were met. Paul says yes. Adoption of an agenda.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We come to the public comment period. Oh, wait a minute, previous minutes. Yep.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Where were they? I had a question. I don't know if I got it answered by myself. Darn it. Well, I can't find it now, so it couldn't have been too important. All in favor of adopting minutes from the previous meeting? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we get to public comment. Members of the public will have a 50-minute block of time to comment on today's agenda items. Members of the public must be present at the beginning of the meeting or comment period will be waived. Public comment period may be extended or curtailed at the discretion of the chair after advisement by Executive Finance Committee. If anybody's interested in calling in, call 715-538-1770. 715-538-1770. Is anybody here from the public to discuss items today? If not, we'll put it on hold. If somebody does call in, we'll move back to it. County sales tax update.
Well, I was mildly surprised this time around. Our payment was $269,713.47 compared to $206,000 last year and $186,000 the year before. So we were at $2,003,676.57, which if you look at the bottom of that sheet, we're only $246,000 away from making budget, and we have 3 months to go.
Did a good job.
Yep. Kind of looks like maybe something got delayed the month before, why that was down, and this has caught it up again now?
It could be, it could be.
Okay, any comments or questions on that?
Just to make a point of note, I mean, we're like 90,000 ahead of where we were last year, something like that.
Right.
So,
And if you look at the bottom there, of last year, we were 400,000 over last year.
I think that's primarily due to we're getting taxed from like Amazon now. If a package is shipped to your house in Trempealeau County, we get the tax now where we never used to. That makes a big difference.
Probably some of it as
Yep.
well as prices are up. So
Yeah.
Yep.
when prices are up, you're paying
More
percentage on a higher price, so you're gonna just naturally bring in.
Yeah, right. yeah. Okay, general fund update.
General fund is no change. Our last change was in October, so there was no changes in November. So we're still at $3.1 million in the unassigned general fund.
Okay. Any questions?
What did you say that was up, what, from last year?
Oh, back to sales tax?
No, so
Oh, this one, I don't
on
know.
general fund,
We're probably, this is a little higher than we were last year, yes. Because I think we were in the 2.8 or something like that last year at the
That's
end.
the number I remember seeing.
Yep. So, a couple 100,000 maybe.
Okay. Okay. Department reports and requests. Quarterly update from Steve Young, Veterans Office.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'll make this as quick and painless as possible. We briefed last time about the PACT Act, which will go into effect January 1st, so I left that information on there for you to review one more time. This is the largest piece of legislation passed by the federal government in support of veterans in history. It's going to support 31 more VA facilities. They've added quite a few burn pit and other toxic exposure conditions to the list that'll be presumed as caused by that exposure. They added 5 more locations for Agent Orange exposure, and they added 2 more conditions to that list as well, which was a precursor to leukemia and then hypertension, which was a big one over the years. You can file claims for the PACT Act now with folks in my office, and they'll start working it on January 1st. As far as training goes, Joe, my benefit specialist, completed the NACVSO Basics Benefits course, so he's now nationally accredited, so he can work with veterans anywhere in the world now. So if we have any vets who work through us and move and want to continue to work with us, we can. He can, now he's just got a bigger blanket and more training opportunities as well. Excuse me. I sent his accreditation paperwork in the other day to the Federal Government Office General Counsel. That shouldn't take too long. I attended an advanced appeals course also through NACVSO, which is National Association of County Veteran Service Officers. We're members of that. And what that does is allow me to upskill in appeals. So now I can help veterans out at the appeals levels with the VA board and then at the Supreme Court as well. We argue a couple of times a year there for vets who really want to push it. That's a 5 to 7 year process typically, even just to get it on the docket. So that does take a while, but it can be complex. Recent events, we had a yellow ribbon event out at Volk Field Air National Guard Base in Camp Williams. We had a unit come back from deployment. So I was out there to talk with them about their benefits returning from their area of responsibility. They were deployed to multiple locations, and I was able to work with several of them. I also attended the Planning for Your Future event the ADRC had in Blair in November. That was, I think, a success. I talked to several folks there. Upcoming events, we have the Toys for Tots box located in the entryway out by our door. They'll come pick that up second week of December. I want to say the 16th. Yep. And then we're doing the Christmas gifts for the veterans at Family Circle again this year. They requested that we keep doing the gift cards. They like that. And they asked for McDonald's and then the Randy's Market that's close by. And they have 9 veterans this year. Last year it was 11, I think. Any questions?
Very good.
No questions? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Quarterly update from Corporation Counsel.
Good timing.
Good to see you made it.
8 o'clock, sure, yes. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of things wanted to update on. Excuse me. We are going to be filing our new tax foreclosures here very, very soon. We'll have 9 of them this year that we will be filing on. Usually when that happens, a number of them do pay before we get to the point of taking judgment, so I do expect that like normal. But anyhow, so we'll be moving forward with that here in the next couple of weeks. Opioid settlement payments, I don't know who has not heard yet, but one of the defendants, Janssen, their settlement, they have decided for whatever reason to accelerate their payment schedule, and so we're going to get 5 years worth of payments this year. So just that portion is going to be just under $100,000. That's in addition to the other 2 payments that we had received from the other portion of the settlement. So yeah, that money is coming in relatively quickly, so under the circumstances, so that's some good news. And then last thing is, and for those who may not have heard, I'm filling in as HR director till the middle of January, till Krista returns. Although you may have also heard that Krista did provide notice and will be leaving us, unfortunately. But just due to the turnover in the office, I'm filling in now through, like I said, middle of January when Krista gets back. So one more hat to wear, but it's only on a temporary basis, so please bear with me. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to kind of update the committee on. So.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions in regard to that? If not, thank you.
Yep.
Now, while he's here, looking for a motion to complete the task that we started last month, that I screwed up and let it get moved back so you were no longer available.
My apologies for not being available.
So we're looking for a motion for that.
Motion to go into closed session under section 19.85 paren 1 paren F. Preliminary consideration of specific personnel type problems.
And the next line.
Actions of a current county board member.
Okay,
That part?
that part.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Dave, okay. Roll call. Bridget?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And Dave Larson, yes.
Okay. I make a motion, we approve the actions taken in closed session.
Second.
And a second, a motion and a second. Any other discussion type thing about that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, item 11, discussion/action to abolish the coroner position and implement the medical examiner system resolution. I believe, yeah, we had a resolution in the packet to that effect.
So there is a resolution here. I'll open up just in some other comments. So the last meeting we had, I suggested that we table this discussion, further discussion, until the election was over, because we actually had people who wanted to be a coroner. And the election affirmed that we now have a coroner. It's my understanding that that coroner position is in effect for 4 years. Assuming that that person who signed up and wanted to be on the election is going to fulfill those 4 years, I don't know why we would need to move forward with this resolution. That said, something we might want to be prepared for is for the said current coroner to resign effectively whenever, wanting to move the position into a medical examiner's position, which that would leave us without anything. So something that we need to consider if that happened, what in normal recourse would we do? Would we open it up for another election? Do we appoint somebody? How does that work? Can somebody answer that, Paul or Rick?
What I can say is that the abolishing of the coroner position and taking the medical examiner, that now can't be done until the 4-year term is expired, even if the current one does resign.
Okay.
So the current one does resign, and I'd have to refresh my memory as to whether it's an appointment by the governor or some other entity, or if it's another election. I just don't remember.
Is not county, it's state.
The state, correct, yep. So it would be not the county board that would necessarily appoint, or, again, or unless there's another election, that's something I'd have to verify. I just don't remember offhand, so.
Okay. So that's good to know. So we need to table it. We have to table it since we have a coroner.
You can, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm just saying, if you do proceed with it, it just would not go into effect until the current term expires. And so then next time that there's a time around for someone to just take out papers to get on the ballot, if it's been abolished, then nobody in theory can take out papers to get onto the ballot.
Got it. One thing to note then as well, when this comes up again, it's not just the coroner's position itself that would need to be financed as a position, because there's how many deputy coroners do we have?
A lot.
And how many deputy medical examiners would we need? We would need to determine that as well. So it's not just, and by the way, I looked up salaries for medical examiners. It's a $100,000 position, again, that we would need to be looking at. How do we pay for that? As well as if you're gonna have 5 or 6 deputy medical examiners, there's gonna be part-time jobs at another 15 or 20,000 per person. So say there's another 100,000 right there. This isn't something that we should go into lightly, and it hasn't been. I'll recognize that. We've done a lot of work trying to figure this out. So I just want to make sure we go on record by stating that all of these things would need to be considered if and when we decide to move to a medical examiner role. So thank goodness we have somebody who wants to be a coroner.
Actually, the current coroner is the one that wanted to change it to a medical examiner, and it was my understanding that we were basically gonna be able to do it with the same budget we have for a coroner right now. You know, I looked at the same salaries that you did, and see some of them are 100 or you go like New York or something, they're over $200,000 a year for a medical examiner. But that isn't what we have in Trempealeau County. Our current coroner is medical examiner for Jackson County, and she just wanted to be consistent between the two counties. She is currently medical examiner for Jackson County too. And she's the one that suggested switching it. And so I figured it would be a good time to do it if she wanted, so it's on the record.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Because it's a position that you should have some medical knowledge. The other guy that was running for it had absolutely no idea. I suppose he could tell, oh, this guy's dead, but that's enough, But you gotta have a little more knowledge than that, and so.
Some kind of nursing or,
Right, and she does the
Some kind.
CPR training, she's done, done that for years, so she's, I don't know. I'd like to see it go through myself. I don't see where it's gonna cost us like you're figuring here, because, I don't know, we should probably check and see what it's costing Jackson County, because we should pretty much be similar. She's doing the same job there as she is here.
Mr. Chair, I've had because I know I've had community members come to me too about this resolution, and their biggest concern again would be the financial things to the taxpayers, whether it's directly, indirectly. A lot of people have concerns.
And I can tell you the reason that the process is going the way it is right now, just some background information. This particular resolution is basically saying, let's go forward with doing this. There are other processes that would follow this if this were to go forward, which would include creation of a job description. It would be sent to Carlson Detman for a review as to what salaries would be. And so all that stuff certainly is still going to be looked at by doing this resolution. And again, I'm not recommending that you have to do it. This is just one step in the process. If ultimately it never goes anywhere, I mean, this resolution can always be either rescinded or decide not to move forward with the type of a thing. So just so you know, that was the process behind why this came forward the way it did.
I get it, but I guess what I don't understand is why wouldn't we have all that information prior to adopting a resolution? Because
Right.
then you go down the path of having it and you don't even know what you signed up for.
Part of it was because there's going to be some costing, and, Carlson Detman's going to charge us for reviewing those types of things. And so there was just a concern about not necessarily doing that unless there was some request to move forward with looking at that.
Right, so I think what we should do is come up with a resolution that says we want to look at the costs of doing this, so that we have all that forward first, and then we bring this up.
And that doesn't need to be a resolution. That can just be a request to be referred to, I guess would probably make sense, the Personnel Bargaining Committee to review that information and then
There you
make a
go.
recommendation.
There you go.
Yeah, the
I just think
comparatives of what are we spending now? What is maybe Jackson County spending as a medical examiner? And what would we have to spend if we move forward with this? And it may be completely a no-go at that point. It may be cost prohibitive for us. And then again, it may be feasible, because I completely agree with John in the sense that you could be elected coroner and not have any medical background. And in this
It's
day
been
and
that way
age,
for
that
200
just
years.
seems, right, in this day and age, that just seems ludicrous.
I know this is grumpy old man thinking, but I remember 10 years ago with courthouse security, when we adopted that, the cost was going to be $50,000 a year. Look at the budget today. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying when you start talking numbers.
Nothing ever goes down.
No.
No.
So,
Can I
Oh,
just
okay.
This would be kind of to Rick. This resolution's already been passed by 2 committees. Can they bypass this one and still take it to county board? Or does it have to go through all 3?
I believe because.
I'm just
Sure, yep.
thinking,
There's technically no money involved in it, but I guess if this committee takes a formal action to refer it back to a committee for further review and requesting certain information, then I think it would be appropriate for the resolution not to go to the county board.
There you go. That's what I was.
Yeah. I think it would be a tough sell, quite frankly, if this were to go to county board without some form of action by this committee.
So I would think then we're going to recommend it goes back to personnel bargaining for more information.
I would recommend and put a motion on the table here that says this should go back to Personnel Committee to form a some sort of
A financial
Cost.
package.
financial cost benefit analysis
Right.
and how much it's gonna cost the county.
Yep.
Not only initially, but, in the future years, what could this turn into? Because if it's a part-time medical examiner position that, because the current one is sharing the medical examiner positions with Jackson, what's a full-time one gonna cost?
Is
Because
this
that's
the-
gonna happen.
The oversight committee for coroner currently is law enforcement. Shouldn't it go back to their committee?
Well, I was thinking that personnel bargaining, since it's a new position that needs to be created, my thought is that have personnel bargaining take a look at it, get the information, because law enforcement wouldn't necessarily do the whole review for salary wage purposes. So then they can pass it then on to law enforcement for review and then kind of go back through the channels and on its way up. Just a thought process on it, so.
I have a feeling if this went right now before the full county board, it would be a very tough sell.
So there's my,
I didn't think it
was
was.
my motion.
I think if he's sitting
Yeah.
around a meeting, he shouldn't be
Yes?
part of our discussion.
I didn't hear a second. Did anybody?
We got
I'll second, you made the motion.
Right. You
correct?
gotta cut
I'll
that out.
second
Okay.
the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? I think it carried. Discussion action to establish a non-lapsing health department status agent.
Do you want to read it?
Establishing a non-lapsing expense and revenue accounts for the agent status program. Whereas the Trempealeau County Health Department, parentheses, agent, has a memorandum of agreement, MOA, with the State of Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for the purpose of addressing issues of mutual interest to the parties regarding Wisconsin Statute 97.41 and 97.615 and Chapter ATCP 74 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code. And whereas the issues of mutual interest include an integrated food safety system and safe operation of retail food, lodging, and recreational establishments within the state of Wisconsin, and whereas the intention of the MOA is to provide framework for the provision of services for inspection, licensing, complaint, and foodborne illness investigation for retail food, lodging, and recreational establishments as an agent for the DATCAP. And whereas the MOA states that the total license fees the agent collects may not exceed the agent's reasonable costs of issuing licenses to, making investigations and inspections of, and providing education, training, and technical assistance to licensed establishments, plus the state fees. And whereas the collected fee revenues are not always expended in the year of receipt and must only be spent on the agent program expenses. Now, be it resolved that the expense account 201.54132 and revenue account 201.43535 for the agent status program be established as a non-lapsing account, so all revenues received will be used only for the agent status program as the agreement specifies. Introduced by the Board of Health Committee with all the signatures.
So I'm not sure I understand all of this, so.
Well, I'm not sure I do either, but my basic understanding is all the whereases are already in place. It's just a matter of making it into a non-lapsing account is the purpose of the resolution. If I haven't stated that correctly,
Nope, that sounds
correct me.
Hello, I'm Jen Como, Interim Health Director for the Trumpealeau County Health Department. I am also the Environmental Health Specialist that oversees the Agent Status Program. And what this is outlining is that the funds that we take in through our licensing revenue, through inspections, licensing, et cetera, has to stay only within that program as stipulated by the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, or DATCAP, that holds the Agent Status Program. Because of COVID and our recent changes in staffing, it has come to our knowledge that we can't use all those funds up within a year like we have in the past. And that it's coming down to my overall knowledge of years in the past, I'll say that. So with these funds, the state of Wisconsin DATCAP states that it can only be used for that program specifically. It can't be distributed in other programs to offset funds. So the way this year is looking, we have extra funds in that program, and we need to roll them over into next year and following years until we can use them up appropriately with that program.
So did you say the state already says that that's what has to happen? So why do we need a resolution to make you do that?
Because in my accounting system, it isn't established as that right now. So you guys create it, and then I can keep track.
Didn't
And
this-
if we do nothing, what happens to the money?
It was actually going into their fund balance,
Okay,
and ultimately with their amount that they could keep, anything over would go into the general fund. So we don't want that to happen.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution establishing non-lapsing expense and revenue accounts for the agent status program.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second. Any more discussion?
Is there a limit?
So the state or DATCAP doesn't put a limit on what we can roll over. However, they don't want, again, they haven't put a limit on this, but they don't want us to have extra funds. If we have extra funds, we're required to give them a plan at how we're going to use up those funds, such as equipment for that program, staff additional training, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so that brings up a bunch of other questions. So
Okay.
what's the timeline of when the additional equipment would need to be purchased? And, I mean, how long can it go where that fund can just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and, well, we haven't spent it yet, but it's still there? I mean,
That would be a question that I would have to propose to the state at what is the limit that we can no longer exceed that much. My previous budget, they were looking at it and stated that as long as we have a plan to use it up, it could be a 5-year plan, it could be a 10-year plan. They were happy knowing that we had a plan in place to utilize those funds.
And with our tracking, we'll know at budget time every year when those things are gonna happen.
Okay.
So we'll see it.
So you have a plan put together now for how you're going to spend that?
So our plan right now, because we're going to have excess funds with our decreased staff up there, our funds coming up as soon as we get that position filled, a lot of those funds will go to that individual's training to prepare them for that position. Along with overall maintenance, like our computers should be replaced every 3 to 4 years. That's going to be an expense. Those are items that we want to have future plans and a little bit of cushion in that account so that knowing equipment gets damaged, we can replace it.
So have we, as a county, not been following state law, and we've been putting money into the general fund when we shouldn't have been? Is that really what's happened?
We have to go back and look to be sure, but I think it has been expended in the past. It's just now that it's come to light that we're gonna have money left over at the end of the year. And it was a pretty sizable amount.
It was, to my knowledge, it was approximately $30,000 that we would be in excess of that account.
Well, it stands to reason it's one less person. Well, there you go. I mean, that's it right there.
Yeah, once, like Jen said, once that position is filled, and with the laundry list of things that it can be utilized for, the health department is not going to have trouble utilizing those monies. I don't see it over time building up this big cushion of money that's always just kind of sitting there in limbo. It's more of a temporary dilemma.
Okay. Anything else? Or go for a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion of,
Thanks, Jen.
yep, thank you. Discussion of / action ARPA funds, report.
I have not, oops.
I have nothing new to report.
Nothing new.
No. They're just sitting there. We've only used 6,000. We've designated some, but the rest is undesignated.
Okay. Which in my opinion is a
And
good
I
place
guess the
for
one
it
thing I
yet.
have to go backwards now too, because we did allocate 6,000 to the Veterans Office, and they bought wheelchairs and walkers and whatnot, and they didn't spend it all. So I'm probably gonna have to do some kind of entry to put some of that back into the fund.
Okay. And then we got the FEMA funds.
Nope.
Or lack
I think I
thereof.
mentioned last time about how we had turned in $240-some thousand, and they only okayed 8,200. Well, we just got a notification that we will be getting the 8,200. But Integrity was still going to submit another submission, which was again a little over 200,000. So we have one more chance.
And how much is that going to cost us to have them resubmit?
I hope none more. Well, we're gonna be getting the money back also for whatever they spent on us.
We are getting that for
Yeah,
sure.
they will submit that. That's administration
They will
costs.
submit it, but will they get, we don't.
Yeah, that part, FEMA has said they do pay all the administration.
Okay.
So they're gonna pay $50,000 to us for having
To get
hired
eight.
someone to submit it to only give us $8,200.
That's-
Well, that was a
Well,
great
we already,
use of-
we did get 90,000 in the first place.
Okay.
But out of 600,000 that we've submitted,
Seems like a awful high administrative cost to get.
Right.
yes, that's true, that's true.
Okay,
Okay, Mr. Chair, I have one more thing to bring up before we
Okay.
end the day here.
Yep.
Can I do that now?
Nope.
No?
No, just kidding.
I'm on UW Extension, and they have a question about ability to use the courthouse, and I don't know, maybe Paul might have best information of anybody, but I gotta bring it up to you, that its example would be like 4-H, wanting to bring a group in of 20 people or whatever, and the access to the courthouse with all our new.
Oh, the access, that'd be the sheriff's department, but for us, we do, let out rooms,
We do.
like the Trempealeau room or whatever for,
Well, what's,
with
I wonder
4-H,
why
I
they
think just,
get the feeling that they can't come in here with a group.
Because we have a
I
policy
think
in
they're
place.
after hours, though, they'd be asking.
policy,
After hours,
probably,
that's
it's
why.
the after-hours
Sure.
part.
It's the after hours
It has
part,
to
I
be
remember.
that.
'Cause I'm on UW Extension too, and there was the after hours part they were concerned about.
We have a policy that we enacted not too many years ago in regards to use of the building by outside agencies. And yeah, the only thing would be is after hours is whether or not there's security to staff it and who's going to cover that
That would be
cost.
the thing.
So it pretty much won't work for them, then, basically, they would have to,
I'd have to refresh my memory
Then
on
we
the
would have to
policy
hire
itself.
I think you'd have to talk,
security person.
yeah, you'd have
Mm-hmm.
to talk to the sheriff on that part, because 4-H agents and UW Extension agents all have, so they can
Mm-hmm.
get in.
Sure.
But then if
But
they're
then to
bringing-
let people
If they're-
in,
if they're
there's
bringing
your thing,
people,
yeah.
to let other
That's the
people
no.
in.
That's the thing.
That one.
That would, well, that you'd have to talk to the sheriff, because that's
So
the
is
security
anybody else
part.
able to do that?
Well, we just
Just-
had the Fair Board just did their annual
they
meeting here a
had
couple,
their-
yeah, they had it here at the courthouse.
Was it during the
So-
day though?
No, it was at night.
So you'd have to get approval from the sheriff to have security for the ones that don't
Someone on
have?
the sheriff's department who was in charge of the fair board, and that's why they would.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Say
the
that
sheriff,
again.
so the sheriff covered the cost of security for that meeting?
No, there still wasn't any security. It's just that there was an employee that,
Of the sheriff's department?
of the sheriff's department that had this.
That happened, so they could be the key holder because they were an employee of the sheriff's department. So that's how that, I think, worked, right? Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So that's how they got past that one.
So, yeah, I would just get on the sheriff and find out.
Okay,
Because that was the dual duty there.
thank
yeah.
you.
Just thinking along that,
is also on the fair board.
yeah, along that
Those
line,
also had,
line that
You get
maybe more than one qualified person to enter needs to be with the group rather than just one? I mean, is that something to
Key
be?
holders, is what you're saying?
Yeah, right, yeah. I'm just,
answer that one for the sheriff, because they're
Yeah.
in charge of security.
that's just a thought. And it seems that you brought that up, and I'm looking at a lot of other agendas that I have dealt with over the years, specify an item about any other business.
That's
Wha-
not legal.
Not really
It's not legal? It's not
really a
legal to do?
deal.
Okay. So, I'm just, this was not a big deal, but it's outside the scope of the agenda. Could we really talk about it?
Sure.
Technically, no, but at least there's no action being proposed on it.
Right,
I think,
okay,
so,
yeah.
mhm.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Set time and date for the next meeting, which is,
Second, we're closed, right? So then you have to visit another day.
okay, I don't have a calendar in here with me.
So either Tuesday the 3rd or the following week.
And TSAT's down here on Tuesday the 3rd.
9th?
Property
ninth-
committee meets at 8 here.
Can we do it on the third in a different
Property
different
is
room?
ninth.
Then we can't be on TV.
Property's gonna wanna be the ninth anyway.
Oh, there it is.
Dave just had
What's that?
I said, let's do it on the third in a different room. Doesn't matter that we don't have it televised.
That doesn't matter to me if that works for others.
Third's best for me, but I
Okay.
wanna go.
We'll get a room.
Wisconsin room.
Got it.
She's probably booking it right this second.
That's correct.
Just kind of a little spot,
Yeah.
handy for you.
Okay.
And 8:30, you said?
Yep. Okay,
January 3rd, 8:30.
8:30. In Wisconsin room, is that what you,
Yep.
yep.
Where's that?
Right next to my office.
Oh, okay.
Just out front.
Yeah.
Yep.
Between your office and John's office, basically.
Yeah, I know what's that. I just didn't know what that's what
Okay,
it's called.
with, if there's nothing else,
Yeah, you walk right by it on the way
I'll
out the door.
adjourn the meeting at 9:46, it looks like.